I remember the exact moment my life split into before and after, and it happened in a courtroom where my own father tried to erase me like I had never mattered. His voice echoed through the room, loud and confident, accusing me of being unstable, dangerous, and unworthy. In that moment, I realized something cold and undeniable. They were not just trying to win a case. They were trying to bury me alive. My name is Madison Carter, and for most of my life, I was treated like a mistake my family never wanted to fix. By the time I sat in that courtroom, dressed in a simple black suit and keeping my posture steady, I already knew they believed they had won. They thought they had broken me years ago, and now they were just finishing the job in front of a judge who did not know the truth yet. My father stood across the room, his hand slamming against the table with dramatic force as he painted me into something I did not recognize. He spoke about addiction, about instability, about how I could not be trusted with my grandmother Evelyn's estate. His words were calculated, practiced, and full of the kind of fake concern that sounds convincing to people who do not know the history behind it. My sister Rebecca sat nearby, pretending to wipe tears that never actually fell, leaning into her husband Daniel as if she needed support to endure my supposed betrayal. From the outside, it probably looked like a tragic family conflict. A troubled daughter, a grieving sister, a father trying to protect what remained of his mother's legacy. But that image was built on lies so carefully constructed that even I had once doubted my own memory of what really happened. The story they told the court was simple and cruel, according to them. I had manipulated my grandmother during her final years, taken advantage of her declining health, and convinced her to change her will in my favor. They claimed I had been in and out of rehabilitation centers, battling a serious addiction that made me unfit to manage anything, let alone an estate worth millions. Their lawyer presented documents that seemed official at first glance, complete with letterheads, signatures, and medical terminology designed to overwhelm anyone who looked too closely. I sat there quietly while the papers were passed around, watching the judge study them with a focused expression. My own attorney shifted nervously beside me, clearly unsure how we were supposed to counter something that appeared so detailed. But I did not panic, I did not interrupt, I did not react at all, because I recognized something in those documents that no one else in that room seemed to notice. The name of the facility, the formatting of the billing records, even the identification numbers used in the paperwork. All of it pointed to something I had spent years studying. It was not just fake. It was part of a system I knew better than anyone in that courtroom. The judge paused on one page longer than the others, her eyes narrowing slightly as she examined a signature line. She looked up at my father and asked him a simple question about my profession. The way he laughed in response told me everything I needed to know about how much he underestimated me. He dismissed me as someone insignificant, someone who had never accomplished anything meaningful, someone who could barely take care of herself. That was the moment everything shifted. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of years pressing against my chest, and walked toward the center of the room. My voice, when I finally spoke, was steady, even though my heart was racing beneath the surface. I began by telling the truth that had been buried for more than a decade. A truth my father had worked hard to rewrite. When I was 22, I had gone to the emergency room after collapsing from exhaustion and severe anxiety. I had been working 2 jobs while studying full-time, pushing myself beyond what my body could handle. The doctor prescribed medication to help me recover, nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. But when my father found the bottle, he did not ask questions. He did not listen. He decided in that instant that I was an embarrassment he needed to remove from his life. He accused me of being an addict in front of the entire family. He spread that lie so aggressively that it became accepted as fact. And when I tried to defend myself, he destroyed the only evidence I had, burning my discharge papers in front of everyone as if he was cleansing the family name. I told the court how I was thrown out of my home with nowhere to go, how I spent nights in libraries and train stations because I could not afford anything else. I described the silence that followed, the way my calls went unanswered, the way my existence became something my family pretended had never mattered. But that was not where the story ended. While my father erased me, my grandmother Evelyn was quietly watching everything unfold. She did not confront him immediately. She did not create a scene. Instead, she started asking questions on her own, hiring someone to investigate what had really happened. And what she found had nothing to do with me. My father was drowning in financial problems. He had been for years, hiding it behind appearances and carefully managed conversations. The money that was supposed to support my education had been taken, not lost, not misused, but deliberately transferred into accounts that had nothing to do with my future. It funded my sister's wedding, paid for extravagant expenses, and helped keep Daniel's failing business from collapsing. I presented the evidence to the court, documents that traced every transaction, every transfer, every decision that had been made behind my back. The room grew quieter with each page that was reviewed. My sister tried to interrupt, her voice rising in denial, but it lacked the confidence it had before. Daniel, on the other hand, said nothing. His face had turned pale, and he could not hide it. I continued speaking, not out of anger but out of clarity. I explained how my grandmother found me when I had nothing left, how she reached out when no one else would, and how she chose to support me not because I asked, but because she believed in me. She helped me rebuild my life step by step, paying for my education, encouraging me to pursue something meaningful, and reminding me that the truth does not disappear just because people refuse to see it. Over time, I found my path in financial investigations, learning how to follow money trails, how to identify fraud, how to uncover the kinds of systems people use to hide what they do not want others to find. It was not easy, and it was not quick, but it gave me something I had lost for a long time. It gave me purpose. By the time my grandmother passed away, I was no longer the person my father had thrown out. I had built something real, something strong, something that could not be erased by a lie, and she knew it. That was why she made the decision she did, leaving the majority of her estate to me, and placing her trust in my ability to manage it responsibly. The courtroom felt different by then, the tension shifting in a way that no one could ignore. But I was not finished. I explained how the documents they had presented, the ones meant to prove my instability, were not just false, but part of a larger scheme. The company behind the supposed rehabilitation center was not a legitimate institution. It was a shell, connected to financial activities that raised serious concerns. And the person behind it was standing right there, pretending to be an innocent bystander. Daniel, I had already verified it before walking into that courtroom. The identification numbers matched records I had access to through my work. The structure of the documents, the way the transactions were formatted, it all pointed to the same conclusion. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate attempt to fabricate evidence and manipulate the court. What they did not know was that I had not come to that hearing unprepared. While they were building their narrative, I was gathering proof. While they were rehearsing their accusations, I was connecting the dots that would expose them. The turning point came when the judge requested verification of the documents. The process was routine, but the outcome was not. It did not take long for inconsistencies to surface, and once they did, everything began to unravel quickly. Officials arrived soon after, not as part of the original hearing, but because I had already alerted them. The moment they stepped into the hallway, the atmosphere changed completely. This was no longer just a family dispute. It had become something far more serious. The expressions on their faces told a story no words could fully capture. My father's confidence faded, replaced by confusion and disbelief. My sister's performance finally broke, her emotions turning real as the situation slipped out of her control. And Daniel, the man who thought he had orchestrated everything perfectly, stood there unable to hide the reality of what was happening. The judge made her decision with clarity and authority, dismissing the claims against me and ordering further investigation into the fraudulent documents. The accounts connected to the scheme were frozen, and the case was referred to the appropriate authorities for deeper review. Before leaving the stand, I shared one final thing, a letter my grandmother had written, something she never intended to be public but knew I would understand when the time came. Her words were simple, but they carried a strength that had guided me through years of silence. She wrote that sometimes the best way to survive is to let people underestimate you, to allow them to believe their version of the story, while you quietly build your own truth, because when the moment comes, the truth does not need to shout, it only needs to stand. When I walked out of that courthouse, I was alone, but I was not the same person who had walked in. The air was cold, the wind cutting through my coat, but for the first time in a long time, I felt something steady and undeniable inside me. I had not fought with anger, I had not begged for understanding. I had simply waited, learned, and prepared until the truth could no longer be ignored. My family had spent years trying to turn me into something invisible, something easy to dismiss, something they could rewrite whenever it suited them, but in the end, they did something they never expected. They gave me the opportunity to become undeniable, and this time, I was not a story they could control. I was the evidence they could not escape.